Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. In a previous video, we covered how to start creating a sort of a template for what we're calling sort of a header for a worksheet by using VBA rather than creating an actual physical worksheet that you save to a file somewhere, and every time you want to recreate it or use it for maybe a new account or something like that, that you open the worksheet and you rename it and all that kind of stuff. Instead, what we're wanting to do is create a variable that we are not a variable, create a macro where at the click of a button in our ribbon, in our macro saved to our personal workbook, we can click on that and it automatically create that template for us in a matter of just a few seconds or less. So in the previous video, we created, using an array here and a for next loop, we basically took our string values from our array and we placed those in the worksheet according to the requirements that we wanted to set. And we did that dynamically using the count of elements in the array and so on. So in this video, I wanted to kind of keep moving to do some formatting. And eventually what we want to do is kind of auto fit that column B. We want to stretch this column C out to like maybe a width of 30, something like that. We can hard code in the VBA. And then actually add some borders like, I think the final idea is something to that effect. So how do we do that in using VBA? So let me back up, undo some of this stuff, and we can get back to it. Alt F11. And if you didn't see the previous video, I'll put a link to it in the description below, so you can go back and watch that if you want to check that out. It's kind of a cool intro if you're new to VBA or new to arrays or for next loops. It's a great, great example, a great quick look, kind of basics of doing both of those concepts. So anyway, let's get started on this. I do want to pause for a second and ask that you would click on that subscribe button, click on the little bell icon, and make sure you get notifications every time I upload a new video. And be sure to like and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your feedback, how you, what you think about the video, if it's helping you out, if you have any questions about any of it. I'll do my best to answer those appropriately and accordingly. So, all right, so enough of that. Let's get on with this. So the first thing I want to do is let's do some formatting. Let's make sure that we auto fit these columns and set the column C to be like a width of 30. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable for the range that includes not only our field values but also the actual field itself. So it's going to be the range from cell B2 through C7. And so let me declare this as header range, or lowercase h, I'll do RNG. Now you can name this variable whatever you want. There's no real hard and fast rule, except don't use any keywords. Like you can't use something like date, because that's actually a keyword. It's like a property or whatever in VBA. So it's just a few of those that are kind of off limits, but for the most part you can this is all kind of arbitrary, like field array, my count, and h range. I just name those on variable names that are have some sort of meaning to me. So anyway, so dim h range as range. And then I need to set that range. So I could do it in static fashion. I could do set h RNG to equal range, the range property, parentheses, and then B2 to C7. And I'm sure you've probably seen that. If you haven't, that's just the range property, and that's how you select that range from cells B2 to C7 using that approach. So this is static. This is not dynamic. You would have to, if you wanted to increase the size of that, you would have to go in here and change these hard-coded cell value or cell addresses. And so let's go down here, hrange dot select. Okay, so let's just go through here and let's test this out. So we'll hit play on that, and so it definitely takes that range B2 C7 and it selects the entire range. So that's kind of the approach we want, because we want to just use that H range and auto fit like column B, and then set the width for column C. So how do I do this dynamically though? Because really I want this to be something that you don't have to come in here and change this. You don't want to have a hard coded range in here. You want it to change dynamically in case you wanted to come in, change the number of values or the number of elements in field array. So let me show you something here. Let's first of all, I'm going to introduce you to the immediate window. So you just go to View. If you don't already see this immediate window, we'll just go to View, down, find immediate window. Alternatively, you can just press Control G. That is the keyboard shortcut for that. So what I want to do is, we already know we've got our H range sort of set statically at this point, but I want to take an element here. In the previous video, we worked with L-bound and U-bound for our field array, and all that does, all that means is, for a quick review, lower bound of the field array is element or index 0. So again, arrays are by default index 0, which means they start at 0 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And then U-bound or upper bound is going to be the maximum number of elements. Now that'll be the one that we're focused on, because we know the lower bound is always going to be 0. That really isn't going to change. What is going to change is the upper bound if you add or remove elements from that array. So that's the important one. So let me just show you something. Let's do this. U-bound field array. Actually, let me do this. I intended to do this. So if I type debug print, that is going to print the value of U-bound field array into the immediate window. So let me put that stop there. Let's hit play. And then notice we get a result of 5 here. So if I were to remove created date, let me just remove that for now and show you what happens now. Let me stop that. Let me Control All, backspace, clear that out. Let me run this again. So we removed an element. So now U-bound should be 4, right? Yeah, so that's what we get there. So just wanted to demonstrate that. Let me back up and put that back in there. And let's stop this. Let's clear that. So debug print is a cool tool for testing things. And I just wanted to be able to use that to show you what we get with U-bound field array. So we're going to use that to our advantage. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to change how we're referring to the value of our range for our H range variable. Okay, but before I do that, before we go in here and we set the range, I also want to show you the difference between using the range property and the cells property. So with range, I can select, well, I've already shown you that, right? So if I go in here, H range or HRNG, let's just do this one more time, dot select, and then let me run this. Click OK, click play, and then it selects that range. Okay, so how do I do that? Or let's say we just want to select the range B2. That's actually, let me back it up a little bit that way. So let's run play. Okay, so it selects cell B2. All right, so I can actually do that another way. I can actually do that using the cells property. So if I take this, go cells, open the parentheses, we'll note here the tooltip tells us that we need to put the row index in and then the column index after a comma. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but it's actually this, you can accomplish the same thing using the cells property as you can with the range property. And the way you do that is this will be row 2, column 2, and that's the same thing as range B2 because B is column 2, and then obviously row 2 is row 2. So let's just test that real quick. I'll just prove that to you. We'll go up here and run that. And sure enough, it selects cell B2 based on this cells with the row index of 2, column index of 2. So why is this important? Well, this is important because how do we use that to, I'm going to actually use the cells property to not only identify cell B2, but also to identify cell C7. And the way that I do that is, first of all, I'm going to make this a range just like we had done previously, where we actually hard-coded in the cell addresses B2 through C7, but now cells 2 is substituted for the actual cell address of B2, and then with a comma I can actually refer to cell C7 using cells with a row index of 7, column index of 2. And then I need to close the parentheses on the range. So this is the exact same thing as range with cell B2 colon C7 in double parentheses. This is the exact same way to do that using the cells property. Now, you might be thinking, well, why the heck would you do that? Because you just made this a whole lot more characters than just putting in B2 through C7. Well, I'm doing this because I want to be able to, or I want this range to be able to change dynamically based on the number of elements in field array. So if we come along and we decide we want to add some more fields to this, we just need to add those fields to our array, and then we don't have to worry about this line of code that sets the value or the size, what have you, of our hrange variable. And then every time hrange is used the rest of the time in the macro, everything's going to run just fine. We don't have to go find all this, anything that's hard-coded, and make sure we adjust that. So the way that we do that, now we know the first cell in this range is not going to change. It's always going to be B2. So I don't really have to worry about this piece of it. What I really need to focus in on is this piece of it, and only the actual row index. So how do I make sure, like for instance, in this case, it's going to be row index of 7. The way that I do that, I'm going to use 2 plus ubound field array. And so what's happening here is we're actually putting in a dynamic value here that is based on the upper bound of the field array. So if this changes and the number of elements, the maximum index number in field array ever changes, it will automatically change here. And so the size of this range will change dynamically, and I don't have to do anything. I just come in here and change add another string value, or take a string value out of there. Everything will now adapt dynamically, and so this hrange will change according to that. So that's why we do that. So all right, so let's move on. I can take this out of here. We really don't need that anymore. So how do I auto fit the column here for column B? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use hrange, and it's going to be dot entire column. So you see that there in the IntelliSense, once it's highlighted in blue, I'm just going to go ahead and tab, and it'll auto-complete that for me. And now I'm going to do dot auto fit. All right, so this will take the entire range. This is actually going to, in reality, auto fit column C as well, but there's no values there, so I don't really care. I'm going to be able to use this hrange later for other purposes, so I don't need to create a second variable for just that B column of the range, since it really doesn't matter, because I can come down here on the next line, and as far as I'm concerned, column C will always be column C, where the values go for like account number, created date, company name. So I'm just going to use columns 3. That's going to be column C. because it's the third column, dot column width equals 30. I'm just going to use a width of 30 kind of as a general rule. And I hit the turn my numbers lock off, and so that's what threw that error. Okay, so cool. So now we've got that. Again, let's just review. H range or HRNG, that variable refers to the entire range from cell B2 to C7 in this particular case. So we're going to say entire column autofit. It's actually going to autofit both of these. But again, it doesn't matter what's going on with column C, because I'm just going to add this line of code where I do columns 3 dot column width, and that's going to equal 30. So let's run this. And so cool. So what I've got here, as you can see, is we have that column is now auto fit to fit at least the longest string value in that range. And then I've adjusted the C column to be a width of 30. So we've automated that. That's kind of, it kind of took us a while to get there with the range. I wanted to explain how you can set that H range dynamically using the cells property within the range property, and then using that upper bound of the field array to change the size of that range dynamically. I'll actually add another video and we'll get into the formatting part of it, and we'll add that code to this, and then I'll show you also how to add this macro to your ribbon so that you can actually run it from any sheet. So anyway, again, I just wanted to remind you, if you could hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, hit that bell icon, hit that like icon, and leave a comment below. I know that this video has gone a little bit long, but if you got any questions, be sure and put those in the comments below, and I will do my best to address those appropriately and accordingly. So thanks a lot, guys, for watching. Y'all have a great day.